Hey, what's up, everybody? As always, this is Clayton and Justin here on the Coach's Corner. We're going to talk about the Week 8 games and preview some Week 9 games for you. How are we doing, Justin?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. Playoff football for my coaching and kind of the mid-season point. A lot of teams, some are trying to still figure out their identity a little bit. Others are kind of cruising along. Teams that come to mind like the Steelers, and you could argue the Seahawks as well. But there are other teams that are just kind of hoping for the season's end. It's kind of probably like the Jets. The Jets acronym just end the season.
Yeah, absolutely. If your team or a team you're looking at, maybe your second favorite team or third favorite team, you got to keep some in the back pocket, right? But
Yeah.
if you're a fan of one of those teams that you think that, or we talk about, they're still finding their identity. That's not necessarily the bad thing. You want the identity to be known going into the back half of the season, down the home stretch. Well, final 4 games is when you want to be playing the best football. You don't want to figure out who you are the first 8 weeks and then hit a stall and drag and limp across the finish line. You want to hit the finish line running, like the 100-meter, 200-meter sprint, where you're still accelerating through the finish line there. So that's not
Exactly.
exactly a bad thing. Um, Talking about finding your identity, the Vikings a little bit. They almost look like they're trying to figure out who they are. What did you see there with them? Their game against the Packers.
I'm a little biased here, but I think the Vikings might be the best two-win team in the NFL. But I think that finally, like you saw glimpses of what they could be against the Titans, who were undefeated at the time. Granted, they've lost two straight now. And then against the Seahawks, you kind of saw, what they can be, their potential. But potential is a dangerous word
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what you're achieving at the moment. It's what you have the possibility to achieve. And I just think that the game plan going against the Packers was pretty simple. Granted, there was some weather impacts to the game. Like I think that with the wind, like they weren't going to pass the ball much anyways. But I just think
Mm-hmm.
this has been a year where the Vikings just want to run the ball, and when Dalvin Cook does Dalvin things, like I don't blame him for wanting to keep handing the ball off to 33. And I think just under half, you could maybe say a third of Kirk Cousins' receiving yards were from one screen to Dalvin Cook. And also when you're playing Aaron Rodgers on the other side, that defense hasn't been great against the run. The team's definitely an offensive identity team, and the one way you beat an offensive team is by keeping them off the field, by shortening the game, controlling the game with the running game, and then that opens up what Kirk Cousins does best. We've talked about it. The play action pass. That's kind of what Gary Kubiak, who learned from Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, does it. It's you run your outside zone, and then you run bootleg to where your play action pass looks just like run. Get the linebackers to kind of bite, safeties to bite, and then you have your three levels concept: short, intermediate, and deep.
Right. No, that's a great analysis. And to add on to that, what you kind of need to do, see the thing that makes an offensive juggernaut team like the Chiefs, like the Packers. We could actually throw the Buccaneers in there for this season. Even the Saints in years past, they want to dictate the score of the game. They want to put the pressure on you. So they want the ball first, or they want to get a quick stop, get the ball, and they want to go up 7-0. They want to take the momentum and put the pressure on you. Okay. If they force a punt, okay, great. Let's score quick again. 14-0. Oh, now there's a lot of pressure. Now you're looking scoreboard. You're feeling scoreboard pressure. You're not playing for the full 3-4 quarters. You're playing scoreboard pressure. Now your play calling gets a little messed up. You're out of rhythm offensively. You're not thinking clearly to try to get back in this game. Let's run our game plan. So if you can take away the ball and get to a 7-10 nothing lead, that kind of makes them feel uneasy. They know they can come back, but now they're going to press a little bit. Okay, now you force another mistake. Let's say you're up 13-14 nothing. Now they're starting to feel a little uneasy. They know, hey, we could put up 14 points real quick, but Aaron Rodgers is trying to make that up real quick, and that's what we saw. I think from this Vikings Packers game is Vikings kept steady pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Like, man, we're better than this team. When are we going to take the lead? Pressing to make these plays, pressing to get first downs, and it just wasn't happening. Which that rolls into confidence for the Vikings and belief that they can actually walk away with the win.
Defensively, the thing that actually almost shocks me the most is Mike Zimmer played cover 2 the entire game. I mean, I think they went man maybe once, like cover 2 man once, and Devontae Adams scored a touchdown. And with a very young and at the same time very depleted defensive backfield, you have to play zone. I mean, you're not going to play man against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's going to move the ball down the field on you, but as soon as you get to the red zone, playing zone defense helps you more because there's less space that you have to cover within your zone. And did they still give up 3 touchdowns to Devontae Adams? Yeah, they did. But it was enough to win the game. And so, I mean, Dalvin Cook won that one for him. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And the DJ won him strip sack at the end of the game. I was watching the game, and I dang near had a heart attack because I just thought it was going to be one of those Aaron Rodgers balls that stays up in the air forever, and then it just drops down in the receiver's hand, and boom, another 1-point loss, which would have been the 3rd one of the year for the Vikings. But they were able to hold off and get the win. So what game did you watch the Denver Chargers game?
Yeah, so that one was wild, man. Been very critical of Drew Lock, been very critical of this Broncos offense all year. I'm a cynical Broncos fan. You almost have to be cynical on your own team. Being optimistic gets you nowhere. You know, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Exactly.
But so what we saw was the same thing we've been seeing. We saw this Denver team, this Denver defense come out. They're an outstanding unit, even without Von Miller. While they're missing A.J. Bouye, they don't have Jarrell Casey. He's lost for the year. They've lost a ton of defensive linemen. They've lost some corners, and they're still hanging in there. Vic Fangio's doing a great job. The big difference we're seeing is Vic Fangio's actually drawing up blitz packages and dialing up pressure. He's not just running straight 4-man fronts and saying our guys are better than your guys, and we're going to prove it with this bull rush. He's actually getting some schemes together, getting some pressure on the quarterback, and he's letting guys like Green Jackson and Justin Simmons make plays. Bryce Callahan is the number 2 ranked corner in Pro Football Focus's rankings. He's having an outstanding year. A.J. Bouye's come back, and he's playing really well. You're really seeing the Denver defense click. In that first half, you didn't see it at all, though, because they fell down 24-3. It was looking like an absolute rout. It's like, oh, my God, this is the same thing we saw against the Chiefs. This is not good. But, you know, football's a funny thing. You could get stomped the whole game, but as long as you make 1 or 2 plays, it turns the entire game around. That's what we saw, right? So
it doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish.
That's exactly right. So basically what the game came down to is the Chargers came out. Broncos held them to a field goal. Phillip Lindsay squirts out for a 55-yard touchdown. Oh, no. Okay, so we got 27-10. Get a quick stop, turn around, 2-play drive, 70 yards, 40-yard touchdown, Deshaun Hamilton. 27-17. Okay, we got a little bit of life. Okay, what happens next? Chargers drive down. They're in position. Herbert makes a rookie mistake, throws a pick in the end zone. Callahan saves the day. Number 2 ranked corner. I'll say it again. Proud to say that. Denver goes down. We score again. 27-24. It's looking like a game. Chargers kick a field goal. Denver gets a chance with 1:30 left on the clock to drive. 2 minutes and 30 left to drive. They drive down, get a pass interference in the end zone with 1 second left. They throw the game winner in the back of the end zone to KJ Hamler. The big difference really is Drew Lock's confidence. He's only played 10 career full games. Actually, he's 6-3. He started in 10. He didn't get to finish that 10th game. But Drew Lock's confidence is the key because he wants to take those deep shots. And right now, without Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, there's not a whole lot of offensive weapons that Denver hoped to have going into the year. So Drew Lock's still looking deep. I think he was reeling a little bit after that Chiefs loss. And you're going to have that with a young quarterback. But if going into this week with Atlanta, if Drew Lock can continue rolling that confidence, that's going to be massive for him to build off of, because he's not fundamentally there. This is a guy that we're looking at to be Mahomes light, where he makes plays with his legs and his arm strength, makes up for the lack of mechanics. So hopefully Drew Lock and the Broncos can keep it rolling. Like I said, it all depends on how that offense plays, how the offensive play calling goes. If the defense is going to keep them in a lot of football games that they shouldn't be in, but that's football, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was no surprise when their head coach got the job that he brought Callahan with them from Chicago and Vic Fangio. But also, I mean, like, they're playing pretty good football without Patrick and Sutton. I mean, could you imagine, like, a healthy Noah Fant all season? You pair that with Sutton, Judy, Hamler, Hamilton, Patrick. Like, that's dangerous. Then on top of that, you have kind of a two-headed monster with Lindsey and then Melvin Gordon. And I think that, granted, Jawan James has, opted out. But that offensive line, they invested a lot in the last 2 seasons, which they really needed to. And I think it's starting to pay dividends a little bit, because I think that you're starting to see Drew Lock have the confidence in his O-line to protect him, to take those deep shots. It's just a matter of getting they're getting their guys healthy to be able to, kind of connect on some of those.
Yeah, and kind of an underrated acquisition has been 2 seasons ago, Denver stole Mike Munchak off the Pittsburgh Steelers staff to coach the offensive line. And you mentioned the offensive line itself. Garrett Bowles was the worst starting left tackle in football last year, as was the year before that. He's been the most penalized left tackle in football the past 3 seasons. This season, though, he's the number 1 left tackle in all of football, according to Pro Football Focus. Mike Munchak has done a fantastic job coaching him up and getting his head right. So that can't be understated enough on coaching matters. And it's not just a head coach, a defensive coach, a special teams coach. It's positional coaching matters in the NFL.
For sure. I was, for a long time, I was like, man, because I like Garrett Bowles coming out of the draft. I was like, why don't, like, if it doesn't work out at tackle, I mean, man, move him in at guard. Like, he was definitely a starting caliber offensive lineman in the NFL. It was just a matter of finding a spot. Well, I'm glad that they were able to figure it out, because I actually really liked the kid. I don't remember who they ended up picking up at tackle to kind of fill in for James this year. I can't think of him off the top of my head right now. But whoever the kid was, I really, really liked him.
They've had a couple guys try out.
It was, DeMar Dotson, the former, Buccaneer. But I mean, looking at their roster right now, I mean, you have Nathani Moody, the right guard, who was a 6th-round pick starting for you. I really liked him coming out of Fresno State. And then you had Lloyd Cushenberry from LSU, the national championship winner.
He's been a massive addition.
Well, he's really the thing that makes it all work, because they had Glasgow, right? Or no, it wasn't Glasgow. It was the guy.
Glasgow got moved to right guard.
Yes, that's right.
Season. He was out for the last game.
But Dalton Reisner is important too, because Dalton Reisner is the guy that can play guard and tackle.
He is really anchored that left guard position.
And so the way that they were able to build that offensive line, I mean, it's almost, I don't want to say it's almost Cowboys-esque, but it's almost Cowboys-esque in a way that the Broncos invested in the O-line. It's not always the sexiest pick in the world to pick an offensive line, but they were able to do it throughout the draft. They didn't have to do it all in the first round like the Cowboys. So they were able to get KJ Hamler. They were able to get Jerry Jeudy. So the way that the Broncos have been able to build their team has been very impressive. And I mean, they're young. Their best football's clearly in front of them. So it'll be interesting to see, how that dynamic works with, against the Chiefs. And just that division is going to be fun to watch over the course of the next, 5 to 10 years.
No, absolutely. There, with Herbert, Locke, Mahomes, you've got 3 really young guys. I've said it for years. The AFC West is one of the most it's one of the most interesting conferences in football, just because even whenever you have the Raiders and the Chargers that aren't playing top of the line football, they still find a way to be close in almost every game they play in, even whenever they're not good. We're seeing it this year with the Chargers. I mean, the record doesn't reflect how talented of a football team they really are.
Yeah,
So
Herbert's playing great football for him right now, and especially like playing in a pro system where in college he didn't take snaps under center. I mean it was all out of the shotgun. So I mean it really speaks volumes to Anthony Lynn and his staff, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, getting him ready to play, because when he did come in and play, I mean it was obviously after that freak accident pregame with Tyrod Taylor, and I mean it's just like, okay, kid, you're starting. So and it's not like he split first team reps with Tyrod Taylor. I mean he was taking backup reps the entire week, and he had a
no,
pretty good
exactly.
game that game. And every game they've been in, they've been close, but they've found a way to lose the game. I was talking with one of our coaches on our staff who is a Chargers fan, and this was actually a very interesting thing. He said, the Seattle Seahawks have been in close games and have found a way to win the games. The Chargers have been in close games all year, but they found ways to lose games. And sometimes that's the biggest difference between a team making that next jump, a young team that is making the next jump to being a quote-unquote winning team, is just finding a way to win games rather than finding ways to lose games.
Right. No, absolutely. We talked about the Chargers' talent not really reflecting on their record. That goes directly into the 49ers, and they played the Seahawks, and even though the Seahawks ran away with it, man, the 49ers are a talented team. What's going on there? What happened in that game that you saw?
You never want to use injuries as an excuse. You talk to any coach, they're always going to say, we don't use injuries as an excuse. I'm sorry, but when you lose your front four essentially on defense due to injury, and I'm not just talking about something minor like ACLs and done for the year, it's going to affect the way that you play defense a little bit, but then when the injuries trickle over to your offense, it really hurts. It really hurts your game plan. Especially obviously the quarterback position is arguably the most important position in football, but more than that, maybe one of the most important positions in sports is the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you lose Jimmy Garoppolo, that obviously really hurts things. But then, you lose running backs. But the nice thing about Kyle Shanahan is it doesn't matter who he puts out running back, they're going to have a good game. So that hasn't been really the thing that's been hurting him the most. The thing that's been hurting him the most is losing players like George Kittle, who's arguably the best tight end in football. And then you lose Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, and a bunch of other guys that you were expecting to step up and be big contributors for you aren't there. And then, nobody knew that all these – that there was only going to be one active receiver going into the Packers game before obviously they signed the practice squad guys. Nobody knew that was going to be the case. So I wonder if they're kicking themselves a little bit for releasing Pettis, Dante Pettis. Hindsight's 2020, but additionally, they've had to move around their offensive line tonight in the Packers game because I think their center's out, and so they had to move their guard over to center and then put in Will Compton at right guard. So, I mean, just all those injuries piling up. Plus, I mean, they're playing in arguably one of the better – I mean, we talked about the AFC West. The NFC West is no joke either. I mean, the Cardinals are playing good football. We've talked about them before. The Seahawks are arguably one of the better teams in the league. Have some holes defensively, for sure, but offensively, I mean, they can put up points. And then the Rams. I mean, we've talked about the Rams, I think, every single episode. We've talked about the Rams. So, I mean, this division's no joke. I mean, I think last week we mentioned, I mean, there might be one team here that, that doesn't make the playoffs. I mean, there's a possibility all four of them make the playoffs.
Right.
But, I mean, that would mean that somebody from the NFC South, somebody meaning the Saints or Buccaneers, don't make the playoffs. You know, so it'll be interesting to see what all happens.
No, I gotta agree with you. You know, you mentioned the Seahawks are finding ways to win. The 49ers are finding ways to lose, it seems. The Chargers are finding ways to lose. Man, you talk about competitive divisions and you talk about finding ways to win no matter what the situation is. That's almost what the Saints have done this year. The Saints, given the injury to Michael Thomas, given the injuries to some of the secondary defensive guys, they've lost linemen in the middle of games and had to reshuffle the offensive line. It's actually been an incredible coaching job done by Sean Payton to keep them in games and find a way to win games. And most recently, the overtime win against the Chicago Bears. But you look at a team like the Buccaneers, man, the rich just keep getting richer, it seems. They just added Antonio Brown. We're expected to see him play a little bit. And I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see Antonio Brown make an impact, or do you think he's more of a decoy?
Yeah, I mean he's gonna play. I don't know. Well, we've talked about the Buccaneers too on this show. I mean, like Chris Godwin hasn't necessarily been able to stay healthy. Same thing with Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had the ankle, if I'm not mistaken, and then Godwin's had the hamstring. Don't get me wrong, I like Scott Miller, but he's still young, he's still developing. I mean, I think he'll get there eventually. I just don't think, by the end of the season, he's gonna be quote unquote there. I like Tyler Johnson, but again, he's young. So I honestly do think that, I don't remember. I think it might have been Good Morning Football was talking about this. That the biggest difference between some of these guys that are making NFL comebacks, Dez Bryant, is Dez Bryant wasn't in shape, in football shape. Like, was he still in athlete shape? Yes. Was he in football shape? No. Antonio Brown is in football shape. And additionally, Antonio Brown has that relationship with Tom Brady throughout their time in the NFL, but also that their time in New England. So there's no doubt in my mind, Brady has that burning desire to win, and if he can help teach Antonio Brown the offense pretty quickly, yeah, I mean, I think that he's definitely I think he's gonna go off, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, no, that possibility definitely exists. Sometimes you do see, though, sometimes you do see the scenario in which you focus too much on feeding a player that you don't have a certain number of reps with, kind of disrupts the flow of offense. That's definitely in the realm of possibilities. This is truly a game in which I don't know which way it's going to go. I could see the Saints holding on because they're playing good football. I could definitely see them holding on, pulling the win out, sticking to their game plan of letting Breeze pick apart the zone defense. He's been getting the ball out quick against good rushes. We saw that against the Chicago Bears. Could also see a scenario in which the Buccaneers just dismantle if Mike Evans is healthy with his hamstring, if Antonio Brown is ready to go, Tyler Johnson with the weapons they have, they don't have enough guys to cover. Obviously, Tom Brady has a good game. It could be a 10-14 point win for the Buccaneers easy. So I don't really know which way this one's going to swing. My brain kind of tells me it's going to go back to the Saints. I feel like the Saints still have yet to play a complete football game. It seems like they're still winning ugly. They're still just finding ways to win. If they put it all together, this is a scary football team. Like I said, we mentioned earlier, start of the show. You don't want to figure it out now. You want to figure it out in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. That's when you want to figure it out. And that's kind of what the Saints have been doing. It's like, okay, we know these plays work. Now they're figuring out this is our go-to, this and that. So I do like that.
I'm going Buccaneers.
Speaking of you like the Buccaneers?
I'm going the Buccaneers, and here's why. I think that a lot of people might look at the game the Buccaneers played last week against the Giants and think the Giants are one of the worst teams in football. But I think people tend to forget that Joe Judge is the Giants head coach. Joe Judge worked in New England, special teams coach. I think he had a small role in the defense as well. So Joe Judge knew exactly what Tom Brady did not like. Also, Logan Ryan, also obviously played with Tom Brady for a while. Had his last pick as a Patriot, last throw as a Patriot being a pick. So I think there's a little more of a dynamic there that people tend to forget about. And it's a division game. I think that getting Emmanuel Sanders back for the Saints will help Breeze a little bit, but I think that the Buccaneers are going to pull this one off.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, definitely in the realm of possibility. We mentioned the Saints playing good football about Chicago. You wrote down that you like the Chicago Titans game. What about that excites you? What's going on there?
Which team's gonna bounce back? You know what I mean? Like, but
Great
both
point.
both of these teams at one point were like kind of sneaky undefeated, like maybe sneaky good. It was the ultimate: are they contenders or pretenders? And the Titans, I believe, have dropped two straight, and the Bears have not been playing good football. Granted, a lot of their games have been close. Win or loss, they've been close. I mean, they haven't been blowing teams out of the water, and they haven't been getting destroyed by any teams. But I just feel like until um, they're able to figure out things offensively, the defense is going to really have to play their A game week in and week out. And I mean, they have it's going to be tough for them this week with Derrick Henry. And kind of like we talked about with the Vikings and the 49ers, the Titans essentially have the same offense. I mean, they want to run the outside zone. Some people call it the stretch zone. And then they want to set up the play action pass so they can get Tannehill going with the tight ends, going with Corey Davis, and some of those other weapons that they have. And so, like, the big challenge for the Bears, I think, is can their defense get off the field on third down? Don't allow the Titans to control the game. Because if they allow the Titans to control the game with the running game, it's going to be a long day for Bears and Bears fans. And likewise, I think it's important for the Titans defense to not let the Bears establish a running game because because I feel like if the Bears establish a running game, there's a chance that Nick Foles could get hot, and he's dangerous when he gets going. I mean, because the Bears, they still have weapons. I mean, Allen Robinson is solid, but then Anthony Miller and Darnell Mooney are both very good
Right.
receivers as well. And then you
Right.
have Cole Kmet, you have Jimmy Graham,
Mm-hmm.
and David Montgomery is a threat to take it
Mm-hmm.
the distance. So and he's a solid running back. You know, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So the Bears have weapons. It's just how well can the Bears offensive line hold up against a really good Titans front?
Right. No, all great points. We're really seeing the offense kind of stall in Chicago. Whether you want to put the blame on Foles or on the play calling, I'm putting it on Nagy for not recognizing what they can and can't do better. Like I said, whether somebody wants to agree with what I'm seeing or not, it just kind of looks like you have that leak where Nick Foles says that he gets a play call and knows it's not going to work coming in. That's never good. Whether he meant to let that slip or not, fact is he did, and that's never good. Whenever internally, that's what your players are thinking about your play calling. So I think that's an issue that needs resolved in Chicago first of all, because again, Chicago's playing Chicago identity football, which is a defensive excellence. So I really like what I'm seeing from the Chicago defense. Speaking of defenses, though, this Washington defense, this Washington football team, again, they're the football team. Watch your mouth whenever you throw out their logo and their name. They're the
I've
Washington football
almost said the
team.
other one before. I'm not gonna lie. It's almost came out.
Well, they've got an interdivisional matchup here with the Giants. Now the Giants, I've got this one circled as one I'm looking at as a potential good game, and the whole reason I like this one here is because it's really not so much for the Washington team. I need to see what the Giants are going to do. There's a lot of internal questions floating around. There's a lot of people asking questions. A lot of people are sitting here going, where do we go from here? On one hand, they can still win this division. This is not a good division full of good football teams. On the other hand, Is Daniel Jones the guy? He's had a lot of turnovers. Jason Garrett, their offensive coordinator, has called an awful, awful series of plays week in and week out for this team. They had a chance to win, but against the Buccaneers, as we mentioned, the Giants more so blew the lead than extended the lead based on that awful play calling from Jason Garrett. So you've got to really analyze how are the Giants going to rebound here? That's what I'm looking at. These guys are playing for their jobs. We talk about it every week. We talked about it with the Falcons. You're playing for a job. You're playing for an audition. You're coaching for your job at this point. Because
and if you really love your coach, like I really do think, not to interrupt here, but with the Falcons, I think that all those players really do like Raheem Morris, and I think that they want to see him as their next head coach. They're going to play hard for that guy in hopes that they save their job and they try to get Raheem Morris as a long-term guy.
No, absolutely. We're seeing that especially with the win they just had over the Panthers. But when you look at New York, we're having issues with Dave Gettleman up at the top. If Dave Gettleman goes, guess what? Joe Judge might go.
It might be
if
one
Joe
of those
Judge
Steve
goes,
Wilkes moments.
They might clean the whole organization. So you're looking at Daniel. If you're Daniel Jones, you're like, you're trying to put up good numbers for maybe your future boss. So that's definitely a situation for a team that could potentially be picking top 5 in quarterback range. How do they rebound? So that's what I'm looking at. What are you looking at in that game adversely?
I'm looking to see if Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones can get on the same page, because I feel like there's what the offensive coordinator wants to do, and there's what the quarterback wants to do / what the quarterback can do. I know
Right.
that they've had to move around some of their line. I mean, I like Shane Lemieux from Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's ready to play right now. I think he was kind of thrust into that role. Do I think long term? And we talked about Nathani Moody. I think Shane's in that same category of guys that I really liked. I don't think they were going to be ready to play right away. Nathani Moody impressed me. Shane needs some time. So I think that that Daniel Jones has been hit so much throughout his young career that I think he's just trigger happy. I don't think that he's seeing ghosts quite like Sam Darnold, but I don't think that offensive line's really helped him out much. And if you look at and again, I'm going to point to injuries here. I hate being that guy, but when you have Saquon Barkley on your football team, but he can't play because of injury, that really hurts a young quarterback. That really hurts a defense as well, because it goes back to ball control. Like if your defense is on the field for more than, I mean, let's say it's 60-40, your defense is on the field 60% of the time, your offense is on the field 40% of the time. That's a problem.
Right.
So I feel like but some of it, I just think that Daniel Jones hasn't matured as quickly as a lot of people would hope that he would have. But
Yeah.
I really, I mean, I like Darius Slayton, but I think in all honesty, he's a number 2 receiver in the NFL. I don't think he's a true number 1, at least not yet.
Possible.
I like Golden Tate in the slot. He's aging. I like their tight end Ingram. But I just think until they find really a true number 1 wide receiver and they can shore up some of the pieces on that offensive line, their Giants are going to struggle for a while. I think there are a few holes on their defense, but I think they do have some building blocks. I think their front 4 is pretty darn good. I just think that the linebacking core has some holes, and I think a couple more pieces on their defensive backfield. Long story short, I think that they're going to have a good offseason. I don't think they'll move on from any of their coaches. I just think that they have to get it right this upcoming offseason, or
Absolutely.
Daniel Jones might begin to be a career backup. And I think that they might move on from Joe Judge. He got hired because of his background. Here's a guy, riddle me this, okay? What other coaches in college or in the pros have worked under both Nick Saban and Bill Belichick?
Um,
I can't think of any, but Joe Judge has.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I mean, he certainly has the background. I think that that the Giants organization they need to be patient with Joe Judge. I think they hired the right guy. They just you know, Rome wasn't built
Right.
overnight. NFL franchises aren't fixed overnight either. So yeah.
That is correct. Well, if you're talking about maturation and quarterbacks, you've gotta throw Josh Allen in that. We've seen a huge uptick in his accuracy, which is a big knock coming out of him on college. But the past couple games, we've seen him struggle, and now he's got a tough task to go up against my MVP candidate, Russell Wilson, a guy who's on pace to throw 50 touchdowns this year, a really high octane offense. What do you see coming out of this one with the Bills versus the Seahawks?
Okay, first off, if Wilson doesn't at least get an MVP vote, I might quit football. Okay, because
Would
here's
you
a
say it's
guy.
a rigged election if he
Oh,
doesn't
hey.
get a single MVP vote?
I might quit football, but hey, who knows? Don't. But I think that Josh Allen struggled a little bit because I think that teams are finally starting to throw zone defense at him. I think their first loss of the year. They were seeing a lot of man coverage at first, and then give credit where credit's due. Teams started to throw zone coverage at him, and they started to trick him a little bit. And but I feel like that they have the right team to bounce back here, and I honestly think that they have as good of a shot as anybody of beating the Seattle Seahawks. And here's why. Okay, first off, my Vikings almost beat the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, my Vikings, they didn't play their best game and they almost beat them. But two, I think that Stephon Diggs always has good games against the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seattle Seahawks defense is so bad that I think Diggs is going to have a good game. But I also think that you're going to see John Brown have a big game. And a name to kind of keep an eye out for is Gabriel Davis from Central Florida, the rookie. I think he'll have
Wide
a big
receiver
game.
3.
Yeah, but I think the biggest X factor is how they're going to slow down the Seahawks offense. And which brings me to kind of my second X factor: how well is Singletary going to be able to run the ball? Or Zach Moss? I mean, did he fall off the face of the earth?
Well, last week he had 2 touchdowns. He's been battling an injury.
Gotcha.
People assumed he might have been in the doghouse. He comes back out. He has 2 touchdowns. Now they're receiving touchdowns, but he also racked up, I think it was 40 yards on 10 carries. So he had a pretty productive game the last week. I think it might have just been they wanted him to come back fully healthy. I think they like what they see in Zach Moss. So, no, that's a definite X factor is can you run the ball against this Seahawks defense? Keep them off the field a little bit.
I think
as
the
we
answer is
talk.
100% yes with running the football, but it's a matter of the Seahawks defense is so bad. Can you sustain long enough drives to kill clock and give your defense a rest? Because they're going to need it against the Seahawks because Lockett's legit. DK Metcalf's legit. David Moore's good. I mean, he is. Most teams, if they could pick up David Moore, would probably do it. Especially the Patriots right now. Like, they would love to have a guy like that.
Absolutely.
But even playing musical chairs at the running back position with the Seahawks, they're still able to find ways to succeed. So it's a matter of can you match points with the Seahawks if you need to, but more importantly, can you control the game? Can you take advantage of that bad Seahawks defense? And you're gonna, field goals aren't gonna win in this game. They're gonna have to score touchdowns to win this game.
Yep, you got to get in the red zone. You got to convert.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. Again, we thank you guys for sticking with us, watching. If we missed anything, if there's something you see in the coming weeks that you want us to break down, make sure to reach out. Justin, you got anything to add?
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more great content.
as always. All right, guys, we'll see you again here on Coach's Corner next week. Thanks for hanging out with us.
So yeah.